The phone was already ringing when Isabel Morales Issa, to everyone who thought they knew her, walked into her apartment. She pressed speaker before sitting down, still wearing her work blazer, her badge from the bank glinting under the kitchen light. "You're banned from Thanksgiving until you apologize to your cousin," her mother's voice declared, sharp and final, echoing through the small room. From the other end came laughter familiar, full-bellied, cruel in its ease. A man's voice. Diego, her 30-year-old cousin who still lived off charm and borrowed money, called out, "She can eat leftovers in the garage." The line crackled with amusement. Issa froze, a fork halfway to the sink, the cheap metal trembling in her hand. She took a slow breath. "You're serious. You embarrassed him at his promotion dinner." "Rosa Morales," her mother replied. The tone wasn't angry, it was worse. It was disappointed, weaponized disappointment. "I asked why he keeps borrowing rent money while bragging about bonuses," Issa said quietly. "That's not the point," Rosa snapped. "You owe him an apology, and until you can behave, stay home." The laughter on speaker grew louder, the sound of plates clinking, the hum of a happy family gathered together without her. Issa's lips parted, but no words came. For a long moment, she listened to the noise she used to crave the chaos of belonging. Then she ended the call. Her apartment was too quiet. The hum of the refrigerator was the only proof she still existed in this moment. She stared at her reflection in the dark kitchen window, the outline of a woman who'd spent 3 years paying for her family's comfort, yet somehow was always the problem. Her voice, when it finally came, was a whisper. "Funny how the family you feed can still starve you. On the counter." Her phone buzzed again. Another notification from the family Morales group chat. She didn't open it. She didn't need to. She already knew what they were laughing about. Outside, Los Angeles traffic rumbled like distant thunder. Inside, Issa Morales sat very still, eyes sharp, heart cracking open, realizing that being banned might finally set her free. And for the first time that night, she smiled. Morning light spills across unpaid bills spread like a fan over my kitchen table. The same table I bought secondhand after college, the one my mother said looked too small for guests. Turns out, it's perfect for one person. 3 years ago, I wasn't sitting alone. I was at the hospital, clutching my father's hand while machines beeped like broken promises. When Hector Morales, my dad, needed heart surgery, insurance covered most of it, but most doesn't mean all. I was 26, newly promoted, and terrified. When the nurse asked who'd sign the payment forms, my mother's hand hesitated. Mine didn't. That day, I became the family's emergency fund and they never canceled the subscription. At first, it was noble, just until we catch up. My mom had said, "You know how hard your father's recovery is." I said yes, because that's what love does. It pays the bill before asking questions. Then came the next month's excuse, the family phone plan, my name on it. Then the internet bill because, mija, you understand technology. Then my dad's medication refills. Then Diego's rent for 2 weeks, which turned into 6 months. Somewhere between my first wire transfer and the 100th, I stopped being a daughter. I became the quiet current that kept the lights on. Meanwhile, I lived like a ghost. My car, a 2013 Honda Civic, rattled when it turned left. My studio apartment had the view of a dumpster. My dinners were instant noodles and guilt. But every time I tried to say no, my mother would sigh. "You're so lucky. Issa, God made you responsible for a reason." Responsible, the word felt like a leash dressed as praise. Sometimes, I'd hear them joke about me on speakerphone how little Issa still budgets like she's poor. They laughed while their mortgage autopay cleared from my account. I used to think irony was funny. Now, it just felt expensive. Still, I told myself it was worth it. Family first, always. I even set reminders to make sure their payments went through before mine. My rent could wait, Dad's car couldn't. My hair appointment could cancel, Mom's cable couldn't, and every time I hit confirm payment, I'd whisper the same lie. This is temporary, but temporary stretched into forever. And I didn't notice how small my life had become until my mother's voice cut through it last night, banning me from Thanksgiving, the holiday I was literally paying for. Now, as I stare at the pile of receipts and overdue notices, I realize something: my generosity has interest rates, and I'm the one drowning in debt. I reach for my coffee cup empty. Figures. Even caffeine expects me to refill it. I pick up the nearest bill, trace my own handwriting on the signature line, and laugh quietly. Congratulations, Isa, I whisper to the paper. You're the most loyal employee your family never hired. Outside, a car horn blares. Life moves on. But something inside me doesn't. It waits coiled, calculating, ready to wake up. Tuesday afternoon. My phone buzzed while I was eating lunch at my desk, a turkey sandwich I made from discount deli meat, the kind that sticks to the roof of your mouth. The Family Morales group chat lit up like fireworks. Rosa Morales, my mother, had written final headcount for Thanksgiving dinner. Please confirm so I can set the table. For a moment, I smiled. Then I scrolled through the list of names: Mom, Dad, Diego, Tia Lucia, Uncle Armando, Ashley, Baby Leo, and stopped. No Isa. I stared at the screen, reading it again. Slower this time, like the name might appear if I just believed hard enough. Finally, I typed, "Did you forget me?" 3 dots blinked, disappeared, blinked again. Then Diego replied, "Limited seating. Maybe Christmas if you can behave this time. Prima." My hand tightened around the phone until my knuckles whitened. I waited for anyone to defend me. No one did. So I called my mother. The sound that greeted me wasn't her voice. It was laughter, dishes clinking, Spanish music, the hum of a family already gathered without me. "Mom," I said, forcing a smile into my tone. "Why am I not invited?" She sighed. That long, disappointed sound she's mastered. "Isa, don't start. You know what you did to your cousin. Until you apologize, it's better you stay home." I stared out my window, the city below alive and loud, but inside my chest there was only static. By what I did? You mean asking why he borrows money every month while bragging about his promotion? "That's not the point," she snapped. "You made him uncomfortable." I almost laughed. So being uncomfortable is worse than being broke. A pause. Then, don't be dramatic. "Isabel, family isn't about money." Her words hit like a stone skipping across waterlight. Smooth, but cutting deeper each bounce. "I know," I said softly. "It's about control." But she'd already hung up. For a long time, I just listened to the silence, the kind that hums after a storm. Then I opened my banking app. Tomorrow their mortgage auto pay. I stared at the number, the same number that kept their house standing. Then I whispered, "Not about money." Let's test that theory. I didn't press cancel. Not yet. But the thought lingered, sharp and dangerous, like the edge of a new word I wasn't afraid to say anymore. No. Thanksgiving night felt like any other Thursday in Los Angeles' distant fireworks. The faint smell of roasted turkey traveling through apartment hallways and traffic humming like white noise. I told myself I wouldn't look at my phone, wouldn't scroll through pictures of the family I was paying to celebrate without me. By 6 p.m., curiosity won. I opened my messages. One unread text from Rosa Morales. "Saved you a plate. Porch pickup after 6. I stared at it for a full minute, as if the words might rearrange themselves into something human. They didn't. An hour later, I drove past their house. Warm yellow light spilled through the curtains. Shadows of people moved behind them. Hector, my father, sitting at the head of the table. Diego, the golden boy, raising a glass. Tia Lucia, laughing loud enough for the neighborhood to hear. For a moment, I saw what I'd been buying all these years: peace, belonging, the illusion of family. Then my headlights caught the edge of silver foil. A plate sat on the porch, labeled in my mother's neat handwriting, ISAA. Steam had long escaped. The gravy had congealed into dull gray streaks. I parked across the street, hands gripping the wheel, watching that lonely plate like it might speak. A stray cat appeared, sniffing the edges, pawing at the cold turkey. I felt a laugh rise in my throat, bitter and bright. Even the cat got here before I did, I murmured. For a second, I imagined walking up those steps, knocking on the door, pretending it didn't hurt. But then I saw my reflection in the car window, tired eyes, smudged mascara, the kind of face that doesn't ask to be let in anymore. I left the car running. The streetlight flickered overhead, and the house seemed smaller than I remembered, fragile, like something that might collapse once the bills stopped being paid. I didn't touch the plate. I didn't need leftovers. I'd already had enough. When I drove away, I didn't check the rearview mirror, but I knew the cat stayed. It could have my dinner. The family had already taken everything else. Black Friday morning smelled like burnt coffee and exhaustion. The streets buzzed with shoppers chasing sales and pretending happiness was 40% off. I just wanted caffeine and silence. The line at the bakery snaked out the door. I stood there, phone in hand, trying not to open social media. Every post from my family had the same caption: "Grateful for those who never give up on you." Each one felt like a punch. Then a familiar voice sliced through the crowd. Isabel, mija tia Lucia, wrapped in leopard print and fake sympathy, appeared beside me. Her voice carried like a church bell. "Everyone's talking about how sensitive you've been lately. I told them it's just stress. You've always taken things too seriously." Her smile was sugar. Her words were knives. People turned, curious. I felt their eyes on me, the woman being dissected before her coffee. "Please, Tia," I whispered, but she only grew louder, telling the cashier, "She's so hard-working. Sometimes success makes her emotional." The cashier avoided eye contact. The woman behind me muttered, "Yikes." Something cracked inside me, quiet, but permanent. I left my spot, walked out into the cold morning air. My phone buzzed again. "Diego." "Hey, Prima," he said casually. "Can you front me $800 for Ashley's Christmas gift? I'll pay you back Monday. Family takes care of each other." Right. Those words, "family takes care of each other," sounded like a curse I'd been repeating for years. I didn't answer. I just hung up. I sat in my car for a long time, watching my breath fog the glass, my hands trembling not from anger, but from clarity. Then I opened my phone's notes app and began typing every amount, every date, every "I'll pay you back." At the top, I wrote, "What they don't know is about to save me." And for the first time in 3 years, I felt like I was writing something that belonged to me. The weekend arrived gray and heavy, the kind that makes even Los Angeles feel smaller. I sat cross-legged on my living room floor, surrounded by bank statements, envelopes, and memories I didn't want to open. My phone kept lighting up holiday sales, friends posting leftovers, but I ignored it. I was done consuming what didn't feed me. One by one, I laid the papers out like puzzle pieces: the phone plan, the car payment, the medical invoices. Every line was a confession written in numbers. Every signature mine was proof of how easily I'd confused love with debt. The total was sickening. 3 years. Tens of thousands. My family's comfort built on my silence. For the first time, I didn't cry. I highlighted each transaction, color-coding the years yellow for Mom and Dad, pink for Diego, green for miscellaneous emergencies. The page turned bright and violent like a warning sign I'd ignored for too long. A voice echoed in my mind, one that didn't belong to guilt or duty. It belonged to Valeria Cruz, my mentor at work, the one who always spoke like she was handing out truths wrapped in kindness. "Boundaries aren't walls, Isa," she told me once. "They're love with a spine. If you don't build them, the people you love will collapse on top of you." Back then, I'd smiled and nodded. Now, I finally understood. I took a deep breath and opened my laptop. I created folders labeled Reckoning. Inside them, PDF receipts, screenshots of texts, bank statements in chronological order. Then, I built a binder, the physical kind you can slam on a table when words aren't enough. On the cover, I wrote in clean black ink, "This is what I did for you. This is what I won't do anymore." The words felt heavy, sacred, a prayer for self-respect. I kept pausing, half expecting guilt to pull me back. It tried. It whispered, "They're your family. They'll hate you for this." But another voice, calmer, stronger, replied, "They already do, just not for the right reasons." I stacked each printed page with surgical precision. Mortgage statements, electric bills, Diego's rent transfers labeled emergency. Every proof of my quiet servitude now transformed into evidence of awakening. At midnight, I looked around the room. It was messy, but honest papers everywhere. The ghost of the old Issa fading under the light of my desk lamp. I poured myself a glass of cheap wine and raised it like a toast to no one. To boundaries, I said aloud, and to the girl who finally learned how to build them. When I crawled into bed, exhaustion hit hard, but for the first time in years, I didn't fall asleep with a knot in my stomach. Instead, I dreamed of stillness, of a silence that wasn't punishment but peace. Tomorrow, I'd start cutting the cords one by one, and this time, I wouldn't apologize. Sunday night arrived without warning, the air still smelling faintly of leftover turkey and denial. I sat in front of my laptop, the binder from yesterday open beside me like a loaded weapon. Every page hummed with proof, but tonight wasn't about confrontation. It was about release. I logged into the mortgage account first. My mother's login still saved, my card still linked. The screen blinked with the word autopay active. My cursor hovered for a moment. My chest tightened. This one click would change everything. Then I remembered her voice. Family isn't about money, and pressed cancel. Next, the electric bill. Then the water company. Then the phone plan that linked all of them under my name. Each cancellation felt like unclipping a shackle. When I reached the family phone plan, I hesitated again. If I disconnected, they'd all lose service. My thumb trembled above the mouse pad. Then a notification pinged on my phone. Diego had just posted an Instagram story, him at a barbecue, laughing, captioned, "Real family loyalty isn't about money." I smiled, a bitter, private smile. "Exactly," I whispered, and hit remove card. The silence that followed wasn't scary. It was sacred. By midnight, I had erased myself from every account, every autopay, every system that had once defined my worth. My finances felt lighter, my lungs freer. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. The guilt that usually followed these kinds of decisions didn't come. Only calm, a stillness that spread slowly through my chest like sunlight after a long storm. I checked my phone again. A few missed calls from Mom, one from Dad. I didn't listen to the voicemails. I already knew their tone confusion wrapped in entitlement. Instead, I texted myself a single line, "I'm not punishing them. I'm finally trusting them to survive without me." Then I powered off my phone, set the binder gently on the table, and turned off the light. For the first time in years, my apartment was truly dark, and in that darkness, I didn't feel alone. I felt free. Monday morning began with the sound of my phone exploding in vibrations across the counter. The name Mom flashed again and again until I finally answered. Her voice came out high and panicked, stripped of its usual control. "Isabel, the mortgage payment bounced. The bank is calling about late fees." What happened? I closed my eyes. There it was, the collapse I had built to be inevitable. "I'll be over in an hour," I said. "Don't call the bank. Call me." When I hung up, I took a long breath, slipped the thick binder into my tote bag, and drove. The freeway shimmered in the morning heat, every billboard and brake light a countdown to confrontation. By the time I parked outside my parents' house, the porch plate from Thanksgiving was gone, probably eaten by raccoons or regret. Inside, the air smelled like burnt coffee and tension. Hector Morales, my father, sat at the kitchen table, pale and silent, his hands folded like he was praying. Rosa Morales paced behind him, still in her robe, eyes flashing like broken glass. "What did you do?" she demanded before I could even close the door. "The mortgage, our bills, everything's disconnected." I placed the binder on the table between us, its plastic cover catching the weak sunlight filtering through the blinds. "This," I said quietly, "is what I did. And this is what I won't do anymore." Rosa blinked, confused. "What's that supposed to mean?" I flipped open the first page. Each line was highlighted and dated mortgage payments, car insurance, electricity, even Diego's rent transfers. "I've been covering every one of these for the last 3 years, I said, my voice calm but trembling underneath. My father leaned forward, squinting. "We thought Diego was helping with some of this. He told you that because it was easier than admitting I was." The room fell silent. The only sound was the ceiling fan ticking like a heartbeat. Rosa's voice cracked. "You're keeping score. You really kept track of every penny." I met her eyes. "Every promise, too." She flinched. Hector rubbed his temples. "We didn't realize." I cut him off gently. "No, you didn't want to realize. You wanted me to keep fixing things so you never had to feel this moment." The front door opened, and Diego walked in carrying a paper bag of breakfast tacos, whistling. He froze at the sight of me and the binder. What's going on?" Rosa turned to him in relief, like backup had arrived. "Your cousin here is accusing us of using her." "I'm not accusing," I said, turning the binder toward him. "I'm proving." I slid a plastic sleeve across the table, the one with all his text messages each highlighted in yellow: "Need rent by Friday. Emergency again. Promise I'll pay you back next week." He looked down, then up, his face a mix of embarrassment and anger. "You're really going to do this to them? To us?" I tilted my head. "You mean hold you accountable?" He scoffed. "We're family." "Exactly," I said. "And family shouldn't need a debit card to love each other." For a long moment, no one spoke. Rosa's eyes filled with tears, not from sadness, but disbelief. She wasn't used to this version of me, the one who didn't flinch. Finally, I stood. "You banned me from Thanksgiving until I apologized," I said softly. "So I stopped paying for the holiday you celebrated without me." Diego's jaw tightened. "So what now? You just walk away. Leave them hanging." I smiled, tired, steady. "I'm not abandoning them. I'm treating them like adults. I even left instructions in the back of the binder on how to set up their own accounts." "You can start with that." My father's voice came out small. "What about Christmas?" I looked at him, and for the first time in years, saw not authority, but fragility. "I'll see how I feel," I said, and for once, I meant it. I closed the binder, its weight no longer heavy, just final. As I walked to the door, sunlight cut across the table, landing on the open pages like proof that truth could finally breathe. "Behind me," Rosa whispered. "Isa!" Wait, but I didn't. Outside, the air was bright and sharp, like a world that had been waiting for me to rejoin it. My car door clicked shut, the sound clean and absolute. For the first time in 3 years, the house behind me was quiet, and I didn't feel guilty for leaving it that way. The next morning, sunlight streamed through my apartment blinds, cutting thin lines of gold across the floor. For the first time in years, I didn't wake to an alarm, a bill reminder, or a missed call from someone who only remembered me when they needed something. The silence wasn't heavy, it was clean. I made coffee. The good kind this time, the one I'd always skipped because it felt too indulgent. The smell filled the room, and I realized how long it had been since I did something simple just for myself. On the table, my phone buzzed with messages I didn't rush to read. The family group chat flickered with confusion. Does anyone know how to log into the electric account who paid the insurance before? Then a new one from Diego, just an eye-roll emoji. Typical. Mom's name appeared next, her text short. Strangely polite. Dinner this Sunday. We can talk. I didn't reply. I didn't delete it either. I just let it sit there like a leaf floating on calm water, no longer capable of dragging me under. Outside, children were playing, their laughter echoing through the courtyard. It didn't sting the way it used to. The world wasn't mocking me. It was simply moving on. And now, so was I. I opened the binder one last time, flipping to the final page. I slipped a photo into the back pocket me at 15, arms around my parents, all of us smiling like we believed it would always be that easy. I still love them, I whispered, closing the cover. I just love myself, too. The clock ticked softly, my coffee steamed. Somewhere, the city kept breathing, uncaring but alive, and for the first time, I felt it with her Isa Morales, the woman who finally stopped mistaking sacrifice for love. That Sunday evening, Los Angeles glowed the way it always does after rain gold on concrete, forgiving but never forgetting. I sat on my balcony with a blanket around my shoulders, watching the city lights blink like quiet applause for people who finally learned to stand alone. Below, someone was playing Spanish guitar. The notes drifted up and tangled with my thoughts. For years, I'd measured love in transactions, thinking loyalty meant giving until there was nothing left to give. But real love, I'd learned, breathes better when it's not suffocating under guilt. My phone vibrated again. Mom. I let it ring. Then I turned the ringer off, not in anger, but in peace. Some silences aren't cold. They're boundaries shaped like healing. I looked at my reflection in the window, the city behind me. I didn't see the fixer anymore, the girl balancing everyone's chaos. I saw a woman who'd built her own calm. My voice, quiet but steady, filled the small space around me. Sometimes the most powerful word you'll ever say is no. No to being the family bank. No to being invisible. No to paying for love that should have been free. I raised my cup of coffee in a small, private toast to freedom, to quiet mornings, to the kind of peace money can't buy. If you've ever been the one holding your family together while they pull you apart, you know what I mean. You're not cruel for wanting rest. You're not selfish for saying no. And maybe, just maybe, like me, you'll realize that saying no is how you finally start saying yes to yourself.